Hey there. Today on the Founder Shop Talk, we're joined by Daniel Castro, founder of PersonaX, a platform using AI to help creators, brands, and teams scale personalized content and conversations through their target user personas. We'll dive into his journey, what inspired PersonaX, and the lessons he's learned building in this fast moving space. So let's dive in. Hi, Danielle. Welcome back. And for the people who may not know you, so please, if you can give us a little bit background about yourself, as well as what led you to entrepreneurship and founding PersonaX, that would be great.
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Daniel Castro, and a little bit about me. I've been in tech for quite a while now, since .com era. I actually started as a self-taught software engineer, and then as the rise of UX came about, I kind of shifted into what now is called product design. So that was probably product design, UX, that world has been around the past, I'd say 15 plus years, something like that. So it's been a while. And so I started Persona X because through my trajectory of my career, regardless of the type of company I was in, um, whether it was a Verizon, a Walmart, large enterprise or small startup, cybersecurity, it didn't really matter the space. The theme was the same, which is the challenge that everybody has is that we're building for people, and understanding people is difficult, right? So there's a lot of different methodologies and ways. You have jobs to be done, you have design thinking, you have all these different ways in which people try to tackle it. But the reality of the chaos that is building and becoming a builder is that sometimes you don't have the time, you don't have the funds, or both. And so throughout my career, I found myself kind of cramming, like, just that desperation of, no, we can't, we have to think about our customers, our users, our buyers, all of this. So we all know in this space, you start in creating workshops and all this type of stuff, right? And you could start creating prototypes. So as I started condensing that process, it basically led to, with the combination of AI, we're like, okay, well, maybe we can create a way to make it seamless and painless to have customer centricity as part of the conversation, so that you can focus on the delivery, which is understandable. And it doesn't get in the way of the delivery, but instead it fuels the delivery. And that was how we started Persona X.
That's awesome. As someone with a background in product design, I really appreciate what you do as well, and how I know how important it is. So if you can maybe talk to us a little bit more about the problem specifically, and what did
Yeah.
you see in the market that felt like Persona X is necessary, specifically also with the rise of AI generated content, how that played in you finding the right problem and building the solution for it.
Yeah. Well, the problem is simple, but it's very difficult to solve. And even with AI, by the way, it's not a trivial matter. And that basically is that there's all this scattered customer data in different nature. There's structured data, there's unstructured data. You have conversations that you're having, and then you have CRMs, and then you have social sentiment, you have social media, and then you have market research. You have all this overwhelming amount of data, and then split that data, that conversation, by function. So you can almost imagine there's the sales department, there's the marketing, there's product, there's customer support, there's UX, and they're all having a different view of the same person.
Mhm.
So, before AI, even if and I've been in organizations that are customer centric in the mindset, but it's such a, it's a big challenge to kind of unify sort of all the voice of the customer. So that's basically the problem we're solving is getting all that customer data, unifying it, and turning it into action and immediate action. The ability to, there's a secondary benefit to that, which is that you get to share the same information across teams. And that was actually what sparked the one of the biggest pain points that I had is, if you're sitting in UX, you're interacting with all these different cross-functional teams, and you're seeing that, wait a minute, this conversation that the support team is having can fuel marketing, what marketing research is doing can fuel the product. And you're seeing that sort of the interconnectedness of the data that should exist, but it works in opposite. It gets disconnected. And so as the point of view of the customer is different by every department. And that causes actually a lot of chaos, a lot of problems. And so I've been thinking a lot about this problem. How do we kind of centralize this information in a way that is purposeful and useful for each department according to their function.
Yeah. So I believe the solution is basically building this customer centric engine
Exactly.
based on all this like channels, which I think is really awesome. So maybe if you can share a little bit about the strengths and experiences that I think you yourself and your team brings in to build this. Like, how did you think about it? How did you found your founding team members and joined by your team, and why your team, I would say, the best team that I believe can build Persona X?
I would say that. So well, first of all, my co-founder is my son, Caleb Castro. Right? He's a product designer as well. Started very, very young.
It's awesome.
In high school, interning at Sumo Logic. And so we would always have these discussions. And I think just being passionate about the problem is probably the most important thing. So our team, one of my goals was also to bring talent from other places. And so our team is in Mexico and across Mexico and the United States. We have also machine learning folks, and we have someone in developer in Nicaragua who's awesome. But the commonality across everyone is that everyone is passionate about the problem, which is really about chipping away at how do we make customer centricity seamless and painless and make it actionable. That part really starting with the action. I think that's the main thing. The second thing I would say, what I look for in team members is their hunger to learn. Like that is something that you really can't teach. It's innate in you, and I think that we're in no better time right now. Like you have to have that that spirit. So the team is just just always hungry to learn, and we're constantly exchanging ideas, and we're talking about they're doing it like this. What if we try a project like that? And so we're looking at the details on the technical side as well as on the product side, terms of how we can leverage the change that is happening so rapidly. I mean, it's a little difficult but I think that's where the team comes into play. It's like we're highly collaborative, even though we're all remote. We're very extremely collaborative in nature.
That's awesome. Like it's interesting what you're saying too, like and knowing your background coming from, I would say, both the startup and big established enterprise teams. Like just curious, like what would you say the biggest change of mindset that you had to go through founding your own company or startup? And if any tips, I think, or lessons coming out of that you can share with other founders from the same background like yours?
Yeah, I think one of the things that aligns with sort of our focus right now, which is we're trying to help B2B go to market teams. So that's kind of like the first thing is focus. Right? It's when you're starting off, the biggest challenge is that, especially with a product like what we have, you could use it for everything. It's like it'd be B2C. It could be for, we're saying, go to market as an area of focus, but you could use it for product. You could use it for support. So I would say the first part is really to understand the landscape and the market, and then pick a lane and niche is everything right now. So being able to, because what you need to do is you really need to work hand in hand and understand the details. Like you would say, it's like God is in the details. It's like the ability to be able to go in there and understand it. So for us, the focus is an area that I'm always preaching for everyone to focus. But now, I had to eat my own dog food, right? So we actually started with product. So because I'm a product, mainly product person, that was where, I was gravitating towards. But as I started understanding the market, understanding the problems, it led me a little bit more towards the buyer personas, like being able to go into the go-to-market space and be able to see, oh, okay, well, let's go from the top of the funnel all the way through. And so the vision is to go, you know, so if you think about the engagement, the conversion, then you have adoption, and then you have retention, right? And so going through the customer life cycle, we do want to cover that. We have a big vision, but the focus was the important part for us to be able to understand it well, understand the market, speak to a lot of different roles, and I would say that is probably the part that, as a builder, you want to just start building, and it's a challenge, right? Because that doesn't mean you don't build, but it means that you absolutely need to carve out time to do that. That's number one in terms of focus. Number two is marketing. I have a whole new love
Yeah.
for people in marketing and sales. It's hard. It's a hard job. And so I think educating myself in this space, I've always been adjacent to these teams. I've always been involved with the teams, but actually doing it and seeing what's involved and seeing, the actual details of the difficulty of a CRM and managing the customer data and all of that is the area that I think I would have forefronted a little bit more. That's probably the area where I think a lot of, if you're a builder, you know, to kind of force yourself to do that homework early rather than later.
I think that's a great point. And even with all the startups that we meet, like the number one challenge that they have is always is go to market, because they are coming from technical background and design or building background. So I totally agree with this sentiment. But I'm curious to maybe if you can share specific challenges came out of you realizing like, oh, I need to actually move this go to market efforts early on and kind of focus on what would be the turning point that you say that made you realize that, and any specific like strategies or tactics that you did to kind of shift your mindset and the team mindset to kind of focus on go to market more?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it really resulted by what I was saying in terms of having these deep conversations and getting into the details of the conversations with different roles and understanding, the specifics of the roles. And I would say there's another part that is important on the business side. Where is the money going, and where is the who has the budget, who's making the decisions? So a big piece of what we do is help businesses reduce the friction in, these B2B buyer cycles, or, the buyer journey is crosses multiple personas. We tend to think of a persona as just one person, and that's our focus. But it really is looking at the full cycle, and where, you can start off great and then it just at a halt, right? Why? So when it crosses over, you might go, well, it has to go through the, CFO, or it has to go through the CTO, or it has to go through someone, and you don't have the materials, or you never even thought about the story from their perspective. So what we're looking at as we started, I say that to say that when I was having the conversations, these were the things that came up. And one of them that was interesting is that we use personas as a sort of central hub to bring the data and segment the data in a way that is easy to understand. But we had to shift our narrative, because personas are only a means to an end. The focus has become on the end, right? And so that was number one. Number two is that a lot of times, as we were looking at the budgets, we were starting to look into conversations around sales ops. And how is it that you bridge the gap between marketing and sales? Like, how do you prove the ROI of marketing? These types of conversations help me understand also, oh, okay, there's a big pain point here. And as I compared it with the pain points in product, they were different. And so we ended up shifting, because at the beginning, if you don't solve your problem from the beginning, the story, the narrative of what your product is and what it does and the value, then, it starts trickling down across the product. So that's when we pivoted. We said, well, let's move our attention to top of the funnel, where we're focusing on the buyer persona, we're focusing on the buyer's journey, and we're looking at it at the account level, at the ICP level, and just kind of looking at all the different aspects that connect with the people behind the scenes.
That's awesome. And I think we talked about that at Broadbeat another time. It's also so glad to hear that you're using your own Persona X engine. And that's how also I unlocked a lot of insights and transformation of your product strategy based on this customer-centric approach. So this is all good to hear. And I want to maybe talk more about what's coming for Persona X and what futures maybe the team working on currently that you're excited about, how the shifted also the building to building specific future for the go market, and other things that you and your team already used as well to actually
Yes.
pivot to the go to market plan.
So one thing that I'm very excited about right now is that we're actually, as when I say focus, we're just continuing to focus. And there's an industry now where, MedTech, in MedTech, that we're helping out. This company is from Careflow IQ, from a large company called Milliman. And we help them on the content marketing side, triple their efficiency. And as we're helping them with, the workflows and all of this, we started seeing this is where the shift to sales. So the same information is being used for the sales team. We're seeing that precision is there's big benefits there, and where they're looking at. And recently we had one where they're like, hey, I had a 3 for 3, like literally they never respond. And now they're responding to me. And I'm like, this is kind of crazy. So we're seeing that precision really matters. And, having, of course, all the best practices of human in the loop. So one is going into MedTech has been a big thing. We're also talking to a lot of very strong prospects in the same space, and we're getting more involved and understanding the important nuances of what the customer profile and the communication looks like in a particular industry. What I mean by that is, if you think about, so most people will think about personas in AI in a sort of GPT, I could just get a persona and just whip it out, right? But what we're talking about is very difficult, because what happens is you're grabbing the information from all the different points of views, and then you're segmenting that information. And what we're doing is this representation of this, let's call it, you hear digital twins, you hear all these different terms, right? But at the end of the day, you also want to be able to use them in the action. These have to have other things that aren't being necessarily spoken about, which is, for example, regulations. How does the regulation affect the type of persona that you're speaking? Like if it's a CTO or a CFO, or if you're a chief medical officer, pulling that data, and that's part of the conversation, even though you might not necessarily, you're not a medical tool, right? So it's a different types of use for the regulations, compliance, privacy, all these ethics, all these different pieces of AI that should be part of it are the things that we're thinking about. So some of it is not necessarily the showy stuff, but it's the important things. And so we're looking at all of this, how that all interconnects. That type of stuff I nerd out with. I love having those conversations. And so what we're excited about right now is being able to do the complex piece of it. Then the next layer to that is to get the information outside of Persona X. So, the MCPs, and being able to tap into that power wherever you're at. So if you're using Claude, or you're going to use Lovable or any other tool that you're using, and you want to tap into the customer intelligence, you could literally just say, I've been already experimenting with this, and it's very powerful, where you could go, hey, you want to pull a customer profile, and you want to be able to use it to craft a very specific hyper personalized landing page. I mean, you could do that right away, right? And you can feel confident and have trust that the information that's coming in is going to have, your business policies, that's going to have regulations, compliance, and all these things already baked in. It's not just going to be, sloppy response that's just coming in that looks good, but is really flawed. And the people that really care will notice.
Totally. Yeah, that sounds really great. I had a curious question also about the market, because I know you're also pivoted slash the focus you've been talking on earlier too.
Yeah.
How focused is your market at the moment? Like, which markets are you specifically targeting with a tool like this, or specific teams? Any numbers you can share with us, that would be great.
Yeah. Right now, our focus is, like I said, in B2B. So there's two things. Our product is available for small businesses. We want to be able to really foster entrepreneurship. There's a lot of startups. And so the product, you can, go to PersonaX.ai, and you could, just sign up for free and use it for your benefit. And we give, free credits and all of that. Where we're seeing a lot of interest is in sort of this mid-market custom space, where we can dive in and we can be part of basically the AI branch of your team, and help create, these agentic workflows, or basically baked into the automation and orchestration that's needed for those teams. That's where we're seeing a lot of interest. Because of AI, I think there's two things that are happening that are very interesting right now. So AI is causing a lot of noise, and people are tuning out. So the precision is a very important discussion, the human aspect of it. And so there's a lot of interest on the customer intelligence conversation of really understanding your customers and trying to focus. And it's not just screens. These aren't static, just views. These are as part of the workflow. So that we're seeing interest in that space because of that. And I think the second thing that's happening that is an interesting development is that B2B is moving towards sort of this B2C model. So you have these businesses that are high relationship and that have done the world, they've done marketing and go to market in the traditional sense, are seeing that the market is shifting towards a mental model that they're not necessarily familiar with.
Yeah. And it's shifting to be more B2B to C or BC
Yeah,
to
exactly.
D. Like we're seeing this models coming up. Yeah.
Trust is a big factor, right? Like people would do outreach through email and now people don't respond to email. So what do? People are moving towards community. The trust factor is an important piece. We use AI as like human in the loop, where we heavily encourage the fact of bringing that information, go out to the field, go do research, bring that information back in and pull that information in. Also, when you're doing the work, have your voice as part of it. You'll see on my post that I'm very transparent, say when I use my own tool, but I always have my voice in there. Trying to find that balance. I'm learning as well. But that's the space that we're finding a lot. High relationship businesses in B2B. Those are the areas that we're heavily involved right now, and that's becoming more of our focus. MedTech being one of them. Of course, I'm very connected to cybersecurity, so cybersecurity is an area that I'm very interested in as well, with some connections in finance and real estate. But we want to crawl before we run, so our focus is in MedTech, and we're doing some very, very interesting things there in terms of really creating a customer intelligence mesh that is a true mesh that gets shared across teams and that becomes an enabler for speed and precision.
Totally. I think this is really awesome. So another, maybe my last question would be, in general, where do you see the future of AI, persona and human AI collaboration in general heading towards? I would say we are in the beginning of the
Yeah.
AI transition, but where do you see the future of AI, specifically in personas and human AI collaboration, going, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing some of this happen now, where kind of conversation of digital twins, there's the internal conversation. How do these sort of digital twins help internal teams do the work they have to do? And then the external one, how do they interface with the customer? I think that gets interesting. We have in the future the idea of, once we can solve the first problem, then we have the conversation around what we call ambassadors. And I think that the experience with AI, there's two parts. One is we still need to figure out how to integrate AI properly into workflows and automate it in a way that there's high trust. And the adoption in the market, I mean, research shows that there was a recent study that showed that companies are still slow to adopt in full. So if you take that into account, there's going to be a moment where it just clicks, and that surge of adoption is going to cause a surge of new experiences with the interface. How do people interface with AI? We've seen voice. I think voice is going to be an area where that's going to grow a lot. We're barely tapping in. Think about currently everyone's kind of using AI in this traditional click model, right? Information is still very static. I mean, if you think about our websites, it's something so simple. You're still just clicking. But I think that what you're going to do when it comes to intent-driven design, or I'm not sure what terminology will come out there, but the idea is the ability that AI has this capacity of having conversation. So the detecting intent is much, much higher. So one of the things we're working on, and is actually very exciting, is that how do you capture that intent, pull that intent back in as intent signals so that you can keep learning. That's number one. I think there's a whole lot, like I can nerd out on that conversation. Basically, think about the interfaces. Every surface will become an interface at some point. We're still on a laptop. Everything is still static. So I think in the future, as businesses adopt, I think that what you'll see is that you'll be able to capture intent from the first touch. And we're already there. We're just not capturing it. It's happening. It's happening in chatbots in different places, but it's in the product still. Does that make sense? So it's like someone
Yeah,
has to
it does.
register and sign up, and then they'll use your chatbot. But when it comes to engagement with outside, it's still, I mean, we're barely crawling right.
Scratching the surface for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel, this was awesome and a pleasure per usual. Thanks for joining the Founder Shop Talk
Yeah.
and
Thank you
sharing
for
your
inviting.
story and Persona X's story. And for everyone watching, check out the links below and go to PersonaX.ai to explore what Daniel and his team are building. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you for
Daniel.
inviting.